Hey friends, I'm jumping on real fast to talk about the astrology of today, how I'm reading it for the next couple days, especially what's going on and pertaining to what's going on in Minnesota, and basically the United States right now. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. So this is what I wanted to talk about. We are at the beginning of Aquarius season. You can see in the sign of Aquarius, the sun is at 4 degrees. The sun is in conjunction still with Pluto, who's at 3 degrees. Mars is in the conjunction with Pluto, Mars is at 1 degrees. We have a stellium in Aquarius. There's a lot of energy in Aquarius. We have one, two, three, four, five, six. Um, six bodies, right? Because Vesta is in there, and Vesta is not a planet, she is an asteroid. Okay. A lot of times when a lot of times we talk about the revolution, we bring up Aquarius because it is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus does rule that revolution. Aquarius rules the cosmos. It is the water bearer. It's bringing in this new energy. We are in this age of Aquarius. And to me, where we are right now is this line between what we're leaving behind and what we're bringing in. And I want to stress right now that we are not bringing in violence into this new way of being. That's what we're leaving behind. That's what is being shown to us, and it's being asked, is this what you want? Is this how you want things to be? And the majority of this is no. And when these things are, to me, this is the last grasp of that idea of that kind of patriarchal rule, patriarchal timeline. We are in this age of Aquarius now, and I would say I wouldn't feel as optimistic. It's a hard day to feel optimism, honestly, because there's a shooting of another person who was peacefully protesting and using his uh, rights to record. And I find this extremely interesting about the idea of recording. Okay, so Aquarius is technology. And when all this was starting to happen with ICE and the Border Patrol, the only thing they were saying that people could do, you couldn't interfere with ICE or the Border Patrol. The only thing you could do was film them with your camera. And when this started happening, I was like, this is kind of interesting because this, to me, the idea of just filming was a very passive way of action. Um, in the sense of like in a patriarchal rule, and it's not necessarily like fighting fire with fire, um, but it was the idea, it was a little bit of that idea. It was a little bit of how was this fair? These guys have all brought guns to a knife fight. And what we're seeing now is that the power is lying within the idea of recording and this idea of technology. And it is coming through in a way that I didn't see it happening, right? And I want that to be important in the way that this is happening to protect the people. We keep talking about other technologies that are coming online to basically not protect the people. And so I find it very interesting, and I want to stress this point that where we are in this timeline, and astrologically speaking, it is this huge shift. And when I read into the energy, if you will, or even just kind of into the planets, I sit and think, okay, well, how can this be used either way? How could this be used for good? How could this be used for not good? Um, and what's happening what is appearing to me, everything that is happening that is supposed to kind of hamstring the public or the power of the people is actually doing the opposite, is actually empowering them. It is actually showing the truth, right? It is getting out of this idea of that illusion. And look, I understand the idea of deep fakes, you know, um, all those types of things. Okay. But right now, what we have um, is um, video, right, showing what happened in Minnesota. We have video seeing that on the 23rd, they had hundreds of thousands of people protesting. All of it was peaceful. Okay, they had 10,000 protesters or more in New York City join that protest. It was peaceful. Okay. So I want you guys to see that as the power of the people. I know when these things get flared up and people get scared and you start to feel hopeless or you don't know what to do. And I'm here to tell you that if those emotions arise, that's totally normal, right? It's totally normal to have these. But if you zoom out and look at the big picture, okay, I want you to see when they have the power of the people together, it's peaceful. Okay. When they have the power of the people together, it does control itself. The crowd does control itself. You know, I'm hopeful that even though this keeps ramping up, and you could even say like the hopeful that cooler heads will prevail, but it's this idea that the aggressor, right, the idea of Mars is in there in Aquarius, and Mars is at 1 degrees and he's moving up to Pluto, right? Pluto's the coolest planet we got. It's the furthest one out, right? Pluto rules Scorpio, right? Scorpio's all water. So if you think of hot Mars getting hit with a cold, cool, splash of water, I'm hoping that's going to cool things down. As well as on the 26th, Neptune that rules Pisces will move into Aries, okay? And that is going to be another big cool of splash, water, okay? So both Mars and Aries are meeting up with coolness in water right about the same time. And this is interesting because back in 2018, 2019, when I was reading them going under their transformation of coming out of this idea of that toxic masculinity and moving more into this idea of divine masculinity, moving more with this idea of accountability, more emotional intelligence. It happened to them together. Uranus, I believe, Uranus was in already in Taurus, and there was something going, but that they were, and Uranus was hitting both of them, right? Because they were together in Aries. And to me, that's where I saw this change coming. And so I think it's really interesting that this big change is coming with water. Neptune moving into Aries, the same time Mars is meeting up with Pluto that rules Scorpio. That can't be ignored to me. Okay. I know there's probably going to be a lot of other astrologers reading this differently. But that's how I'm reading it. And we are in this age of Aquarius, right? A lot of times, which is good, they compare what happened, hundreds of years ago, 200 years ago when the planets were in these signs. And I have to stress on that again, is that we were still in that age of Pisces. And I know we just came out of that age of Pisces, right? That's why all this stuff is still playing out the way it is, quite honestly. Um, but I want you guys to take that to heart. That was a different age. That was a different energy. And yes, we are still getting rid of these energies. Okay. But it's important to see that there's not a lot of gas behind them, right? There's not that when we were in the middle of the age of Pisces or just in the age of Pisces, that energy kept regenerating itself over and over and over and over again. And now we are in this age of Aquarius. So when it tries to go back and reach for that gas that used to keep things in that same cycle, it's not there. Right, it's not there. It's this idea that we've got to let this fire burn out. We've got to let this fire, you know, uh, we got to tamp this fire down because there's not going to be anything there to keep it going. Okay, what's also really interesting is you can see on the grid, if we go to Taurus, or we're in the wheel, let's go to the grid. So, well, let's stay at the wheel. Okay, so if you go to the wheel and you look in Taurus, you see Uranus is there retrograde. Uranus is going to turn direct here in February and then move into Gemini. But right now, with Uranus still in Taurus, You can go over here. You can see that Uranus is trining Mars again. So once again, maybe you can see it on the wheel. You could see like the blue line and then the triangle. Um, sorry, my light's shaking. So if you go to Mars and you see that blue line with the triangle, and you can shoot it on over to Uranus and Taurus. So again, Uranus is having this talk with Mars. Uranus is in Taurus, right? Taurus is fixed Earth. Uranus rules Aquarius. Um, Uranus is that revolution, it is that rebellion, right? And it's talking to them. Okay, guess what? We're back. After 7 years, we're still having this talk. And you're about to go and talk with Scorpio, who is fixed water. So now we have Mars, that's fiery, okay? Having trining Uranus, fixed air, who's in Taurus, um, fixed earth, right? About talking with Scorpio, fixed water, who is also in conjunction with the sun at 4 degrees, who is fixed fire. All right. Mars is being surrounded by fixed energy. Okay. Mars is in that transformation of this spiritual warrior. Okay. Mars is understanding the assignment. Okay. That old toxic Mars, um, war of defense Mars, all that energy is leaving the planet. Okay. It doesn't mean that it's not still here. Of course, you're going to see it in certain people. Okay. But as far as it having that just raw aggression of just meanness, and unaccountability, it's being squashed by all the four signs, right? By all four fixed signs, right? They've all gone under huge transformations. Uranus being and Taurus was a big one, right? Because Taurus is fixed Earth, and it's been chewing up that fixed Earth that we've been sitting in that age of Pisces for the past 7 years. Okay, Pluto moving into Aquarius, that is fixed water, moving into fixed air. That is changing the way we think about things, the way we speak, the way that we allow energy to come in, right? It is moving more with our emotions. It is moving more with the idea of the mystic, what do you call it? Transformation, transmutation, all those energies coming in. And then the sun right there, the sun is that alchemy. You know, I see the sun as our solar plexus, our self-esteem, right? So Mars being surrounded by all this fixed earth that is in this new energy is telling Mars, yep, it's time for you to come into yourself as the spiritual warrior. You've been working on it now for 7 years, okay? You rule Aries. Aries is about to have Neptune go into it. Neptune rules spirituality, right? Neptune rules Pisces, right? Which is dreams, okay? But it is spirituality. So that is that energy coming on the planet. And you know what? Who doesn't like that? Old energy that wants to hold on to power, that top-down power. Because the Age of Aquarius isn't about top-down power. It is about power of the people, right? It's about individuals and how we can be our authentic selves and still yet all live together, and get along, right? Is it going to be perfect? No, but nothing is. We're 3D humans, right? But this is where we are energetically. This is where we are astrologically. Okay. If you guys look in Aries right now, the moon is conjunct both Chiron and Eris. Again, the moon is our intuition. The moon is how we trust ourselves. Okay, so it's talking to Chiron. Chiron is known as that wounded warrior, or no, no, sorry, not wounded warrior. Sorry, the wounded healer. And so Chiron back in that age Pisces would keep us stuck because we would be too scared to speak up or too scared to speak out because of some sort of wound that we carried with us. But now we see it as the great healer, right? The moon in Aries, Aries is that I am presence. And it's talking to Chiron, and Chiron saying, hey, you're healed. That wound really never was yours to begin with. Or if it was, you're learning how to heal through it. Okay. This is part of that discord because one of the things that's coming out of these this what's happening in Minnesota. I don't know if you guys remember seeing the bald-headed guy that was on there and he was like, I'm coming down here. This is too close to me. He's making fun. He's like, no, I'm not a paid actor or whatever and all this stuff. Okay. But what that proved to him was that he had a voice that he never knew he had, right? That's giving, again, inspiration to regular people. Okay. This Chiron that's being healed, and it's being healed in Aries. Remember, you guys, I said that video where Chiron keeps changing as a planet or as an asteroid itself. And it's been in Aries for a while. And we've been talking about this. It is about us meeting that wound that we had head on and healing that. And Eris was right there the whole time, causing this discord in order to say, is this really you? Is this really your wound? Is this really your pain? And how can you heal it, right? And this is where we are. That moon there in 18 degrees is allowing ourselves to show up, is allowing ourselves to move beyond that because that I am presence. And if you know yourself, right, your intuition is going to be working. It's part of that alignment. Okay. The moon moving through Aries right before Neptune comes in is also so beautiful because that moon is laying down that groundwork. And I didn't check to see where she is today. She's almost to her first quarter self, right? Which is when we decide what we're going to do for this lunar cycle. And so, but the moon also wants good communication. And the moon also rules Cancer. Cancer is water. And so it's also beautiful that she's going in and she's setting the groundwork before Neptune comes in. And so the god of the ocean is coming into Aries, right? And Aries is going to greet him. Aries is going to, maybe not understand it right away, but Aries also knows its place because when Aries looks to its father, Mars, Mars is sitting there with Pluto and the Sun in Aquarius, trining Uranus in Taurus. And we can say like, oh yeah, okay, this is the quote unquote disruption. But and in one way, yes, it is. But it's not the war. It's the becoming of the spiritual warrior. Okay, it's the becoming of the truth. It is the coming out of the illusion of Pisces. Okay, it is um, the coming out of the lies, not being able to see the truth. Okay, because Neptune, which is spiritual, is heading into Aries. Aries had the reputation of being that hothead, right? But now that Aries is more accountable, um, it is that idea of having those split seconds before having that reaction, right? All this is happening right now. As we move through Aquarius season, we're basically 5 days in. And let me just say this again. The 26th is when Neptune moves into Aries. And when these big planets change signs, these outer planets change signs, that's a lot of energy. So it's not too surprising this is happening. But I don't want you guys to see it as this is happening and it's moving into Aries, and Aries is all about war. Aries isn't all about war anymore. Aries is about the self, that I am presence, how you show up now in the Sage of Aquarius, who is about the individual and then the collective and the community in a good way. Okay. It's that shift, and you're going to see it playing out in real time. Okay. But it is that shift from um, God of War, Mars and Aries, to spiritual warrior, Mars and Aries, understanding that I am presence of yourself that has power in the community in a good way, right? In a strong way, right? Safety in numbers. Um, I used to have the shirt. I can't remember what it said, but anyway, it was like strong in numbers, right? Um, and understanding that at a different level than just the idea of the hero's journey, right? The hero's journey now is, and the heroine's journey now is understanding your self-worth and then showing up together in solidarity for the community. So I hope this helps. You guys, there's a lot going on in the sky. I'm trying to keep it short. Um, if anything else comes in, I will bring this to you. And right before I get off, I just want to say again, our lunar north node, what we're striving for is in Pisces. So we are striving for that spiritual self, right? The higher self. Ending, because again, Pisces is endings and beginnings, because it's the 12th sign in the zodiac. Ending that top-down power and moving into a different way of seeing power, which would be power of the people, right? The Age of Aquarius. And so with that lunar north node in Pisces, Pisces rulers, Neptune, leaving Pisces for the rest of our lifetime, moving into Aries, it's asking us, how are we going to harness this, right? How are we going to harness this? And it's in these on the 26th, that 0 degree mark, Neptune moving in there is a karmic turning point for all of us. So just be aware for that the next couple days. If you don't know what to do and you get overwhelmed, the idea is to go do something that calms you, that keeps you aligned, that keeps you in a better space in your heart space. Okay, watching the news over and over again and getting pissed off isn't the best thing to do. Okay, if you don't know what to do, seriously, chill out, take a break, understand the bigger picture. Other things are at play here that's for the best for all of us. And if you can't see that right now, honor that, take a time out, and go be with yourself so you can decompress. Because the last thing I'm going to say, and I know I say that a lot and then talk about 20 more minutes, but seriously, last thing I'm going to say, I find this very interesting that this is happening when there is a huge winter storm shutting down half the United States. So everyone's going to be glued to their TV. Okay, again, it's this idea of that technology, the age of Aquarius, those cell phones, the information that we're getting out. Okay, and actually how it's going to move us forward. To me, this is very, honestly, this is very intelligent and unexpected. I never thought this was going to happen this way, and yet here it is, right? Letting this truth rise. Okay, friends, I'm going to leave it there. If you guys have any questions, just reach out, put something in the comments. Take care of yourselves, take care of your neighbors. This freeze that's coming in is no joke. So make sure you guys have all your things ready, candles, snacks, all that stuff. And I'll see you guys a little bit later.